Okay, good evening, everyone. The time is 6:08 p.m. It's Tuesday, March 21st, 2023. I call this public hearing from the Streets Division of the SFMTA to order. Welcome, everyone. My name is Hakem Ibrahim, and I'm a hearing officer for the City and County of San Francisco, and I will be facilitating tonight's public hearing. I want everyone in attendance to know that audio and video from tonight's hearing is being recorded. Tonight, we're meeting to discuss the proposed changes related to the Northeast Mission Parking and Curb Management Program. Our agenda for the evening is the introduction, which is what we're at now. Then we'll hear the presentation, tonight's presentation from staff, and then call for public comment. After public comments, staff will be around to answer questions that are raised or any feedback that's given during the public comments. And finally, we will adjourn for the evening. If you're joining us online, you can view shared material that'll be presented during the public hearing. And if you'd like to make public comments tonight during while in the Zoom meeting, it's a two-step process. First, you'll click on the raised hand icon in Zoom, and once you've raised your hand virtually, you'll be placed in the queue for public comments. The second step is when it's your turn to speak, you'll need to unmute yourself. To do so, you'll need to click on the microphone icon. So please take the time now to familiarize yourself with the raised hand and microphone icons on your device. If you're having technical issues with Zoom or would just prefer to call in, or if you have already called in order to provide public comments, you can dial in using the phone number on the screen, 669-444-9171, and then enter meeting ID 818-6531-9728#. If you call in and if you've called in and would like to make public comments during tonight's public hearing, it's also a two-step process. The first step is you'll press *9. Pressing *9 will place you in the queue to provide public comments. Second, when it is your turn to speak, you'll be prompted to unmute yourself. You'll need to press *6 in order to unmute yourself. Regardless of how you choose to provide public comments, each speaker will have up to 2 minutes for public comments. Joining me tonight are a number of SFMTA staff members. Pamela Johnson is with us. Pamela is a public information officer with the MTA. Andy Thornley is an engineer with the Streets Division. And Mari Hunter is the project manager for the project and will be presenting on behalf of the team. I'd also like to take a moment to thank our IT staff who provide support for our virtual public hearings, and also to Carlos and David for providing interpretation, Spanish interpretation of tonight's public hearing. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mari, who will take us through today's presentation. Mari?
Thank you. Let's go to the next slide. Good evening, Mari Hunter, again with the Parking and Curb Management team at the SFMTA, and I will be sharing the proposal for the Northeast Mission, and wanted to start with why we are here. Why do we want to introduce parking regulations to the Northeast Mission? And the short answer is it is all parked up. We have heard from residents and businesses that it is very difficult to find parking. People come 30 minutes early and circle around to find parking. And we are not building new streets in the Northeast Mission. We are building new developments for more businesses and residents, but the supply of on-street parking is finite. We're not making more. And so we need to figure out how to use that really efficiently. And the best way to do that is to take turns. This is public right-of-way. It must be shared among the public. And so we find that regulations help everyone take turns. And so we have drafted a plan, and in hopes that these regulations, there are a variety of regulations that we will be reviewing, help people find parking more easily. So It actually started about 10 years ago. For those who have been in the neighborhood a while, you may recall an effort. It did not materialize into a plan. And so in 2019, we restarted it, and we started from a blank slate. We started a working group. People from the neighborhood, residents and employees and businesses submitted an application and have shared their time and expertise. A huge thank you to those who are on the working group to review feedback and draft proposals to what we have today. We had workshops and office hours and surveys, and then there was a pandemic. And so we were on a bit of a break for a few years, but restarted it in 2022. We had a meeting at the end of 2022 just to make sure we were on the same page again. We did some spot checks for data just to confirm it's still very much parked up. There is a need for regulations. And now we're at a public hearing this evening. And so I'll be presenting the draft proposal and seeking feedback from the community, which we will address through public comment this evening, and if necessary, make some tweaks in the proposal. So as I mentioned, we have lots of demand. The supply of on-street parking is finite. We aren't building more of that, but the demands are growing, and that is parking for residents, for customers, for businesses and employees. It's also loading. Businesses might have commercial loading space or passenger loading space. We have transit going through the neighborhood, and that takes up space for the bus stops. We have bicycling infrastructure in the form of bike lanes or bike share stations. And we also have shared spaces parklets, which are from the pandemic, and they are now advancing into a permanent state. So all of these dots that you see on the lower right corner are parklets. Some of them might not stay for the permanent program, but many of them will. And so these are all competing demands. And so for that remaining space for parking, we need to have regulations for that turn taking to avoid situations that are in these other two photos. In the upper right-hand photo, people parking in bike lanes, or in the bottom left-hand corner, people double parking, forcing vehicles into oncoming traffic. So we have a number of regulations in our toolbox. And the first that I'm showing here is a standard time limit. And regardless of having a permit, if you see signs like the one in this example, there's no mention of permits, it applies to everyone. So if you park at a curb that has this kind of signage, you must leave after 4 hours during the hours of 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. The example here says 8 a.m., but for the Northeast Mission, we're proposing regulations start at 9 a.m. So again, this is a standard time limit. So everyone, regardless of permit status, must move their vehicle after the time limit has expired. The next example, or the next regulation on this slide, is residential permit parking. And it also has a time limit, but if you have a permit, you're exempt from that time limit. So in the example here, this is an area of the city where we have 3 residential permit parking areas right next to each other. So we call it a buffer zone. So if you had a permit for area A or C or G, you may park here and you would be exempt from the time limit. If you don't have a permit, you must move your vehicle after 2 hours. Again, in the Northeast Mission, we are recommending enforcement Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. I do want to flag that there is some existing residential permit parking already in the project area. Those regulations, hours of enforcement will not change. So, and I'll come back to that, but I just wanted to flag that from the outset. Then we have standard metered parking or pay stations. And again, this applies to everyone. If there is no signage to suggest that permit holders are exempt, everyone must pay the meter. Most of the meters in this proposal will have no time limit. So if you needed to park for 30 minutes, fantastic. You just need to pay for 30 minutes. If you needed to pay for the entire day, you may also pay for the entire day. And the really nice thing about the new meter infrastructure that's being installed, or that would be installed for this project area, is that you can prepay a meter. So if, for example, you showed up at 7 a.m. and you needed to be there until noon, you can pay the meter as soon as you show up, but the meter won't start using that money until enforcement starts, which is at 9 a.m. So you don't have to think, oh, it's almost 9, I have to go back to the meter and pay it. As soon as you park, you can pay the meter, and it'll only start using that money when enforcement starts, which is 9 a.m. The other nice thing about the meters is that if you realize I need another hour, my meeting is running long, or I need to stay longer for whatever reason, you can do that remotely. You don't have to go back out to your car to pay the meter. And then finally, I'll say that the meter rates will start at 50 cents an hour. I'll provide more detail on that, but this is for all the new meters. There are some meters already in the Northeast Mission with established meter rates. This is just for any new meters that would advance through this proposal. And then the last regulation we have here is called payer permit. It's relatively new. We don't have it in many places yet around the city, but it's basically an overlay of parking meters with residential permit parking. So rather than a time limit, people who do not have permits would pay the meter or the pay station. So as you can see on the example here, the sign is for area X. If you had an area X permit, you can park there and you don't have to pay the meter. If you don't have the permit as specified on the sign, then you do. So this is the proposal. As you can see, it's very colorful. We, again, are trying to find the regulation that fits best for the adjacent land uses. So we are using every tool in our regulatory toolbox, from standard time limits to different versions of residential permit parking and standard parking meters. What's not on this map is loading zones. Existing loading zones are not affected by this. If there is a business that already has commercial loading zone, passenger loading zone, or a school has passenger loading zone, those stay. It's just the curb space that is unregulated that would receive these kinds of parking regulations. If there's a loading zone that's no longer needed, we can take that away and restore it to parking. Accessible parking, similarly, any ADA or accessible parking spaces out there will remain. We'll be adding some more. Daylighting is a treatment that we use to make intersections safer. When you approach the intersection, we want to make sure that everyone has good visibility. People driving can see pedestrians crossing at intersections and vice versa. I'll show an example in just a second. And then lastly, again, the shared spaces parklets. Some of them may not continue as we transition from a pandemic program into the permanent program, but some will. It's a great use of public space. You know, this is public right of way, but we just therefore need to make sure that the rest of the curb is regulated, so we are taking turns. So these are just examples of the loading zones I just mentioned. This is an example of a commercial loading zone. It's painted yellow. It has signage. If this were passenger loading, it would be painted white. In the upper right-hand corner, we have an ADA accessible parking space. It's painted blue and near a ramp to make sure people can access the sidewalk safely. And then daylighting. Again, it's this treatment that we use when you approach an intersection. As you can see in the bottom left corner, a driver or a pedestrian at the crosswalk, they cannot see each other when a vehicle is parked right at the crosswalk. So what we do is we put in a little red paint just to make sure that when vehicles are approaching and pedestrians are at the crosswalk, they can see each other. A little bit more detail on the paid parking. As I mentioned, there's no time limit, with the exception of 2 block faces. We have received requests for a 2-hour time limit. But aside from those 2 locations, anywhere there's a parking meter, there would not be a time limit. It just allows for some flexibility. Again, if you only need 30 minutes, that's all you pay. If something happens and you need it to pay all day, you can pay for parking all day. They would be enforced Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And that includes the payer permit, that overlap of meters with residential permit parking. Anything that has a meter, again, is Monday through Saturday. There are a variety of ways to pay. Coins, credit cards, online, on your phone, on an app. And we'll be starting the meter rates at our base rate of 50 cents an hour. And we have our meters run on this program called demand responsive pricing. So we monitor meter data to see if that is the right price given the demand. If demand is really, really high, we might have to increase the price by 25 cents. And it only happens every few months in 25-cent increments. So it'll never go 50 cents an hour one day and $5 the next day. When we make a change, it's only done in 25-cent increments. A little bit more detail on residential permit parking, pardon me, is that in this map, I've just teased out the standard meters and the standard time limits that apply to everyone. And so what you're seeing here are just the blocks that have some version of permit parking. So the magenta, again, is the payer permit, and the yellow and the green are the time limited residential permit parking. And you'll see some solid green on the west end and southwest, and then in the southeast corner. And those are areas, existing areas I and W. That signage will be updated to be area GG, the new proposed residential zone, permit zone. And eligibility extends to residents and businesses, as well as caregivers and teachers, and then a variety of others, people working that might be working in the neighborhood. But their application, how you apply for that is a little bit different. So all this information to get a permit is online. And if there are any follow-up questions or confusion, I can connect you with the program manager, or you can contact the program directly. One thing that I'm very excited to share is that this newly created zone will, we're testing out a monthly payment option. So in other RPP, residential permit parking areas, it's an annual fee. You purchase a permit and you pay the fee upfront for the year. We have been given the green light to test out a monthly payment system for this new zone, and this new zone alone, from the staff that administers the permitting system. It will allow us to test the administrative logistics and coordination with enforcement, ideally to offer it citywide, but we will be testing it with the Northeast Mission permit, parking permit area. And this will alleviate some of that cost burden upfront. Rather than the entire fee upfront, you pay it on a monthly basis. So, and then the next couple slides are just showing what the signs will look like when if it's approved and we start implementing, these are the kinds of signs that you'll expect to see in the neighborhood. So on the left is what you'll see for pay or permit. Again, if you have the new permit, you're exempt from paying the meter. Otherwise, you do pay it. On the right-hand side is the more standard, or sorry, the traditional time-limited residential permit parking. Oh, sorry, down. And then on this slide, while we are talking about parking regulations, I would be remiss if I didn't mention all the other ways that people can enjoy the Northeast Mission. We are the transportation agency and want to be promoting transit, walking and biking. And so wanted to share that it is a transit-rich area. So if you have a few vehicles and you can get rid of one, we've got regional transit coming through here. If you take BART, we have local Muni service with improvements on the 16th Street. So you'll probably see or have already seen improvements there. We have bike share. Those are all the little bike icons on this map, with several bike lanes already in existence with improvements coming. We have car share, which is basically renting a car from time to time, but it's on street, so it's a little bit more convenient because the cars are already in your neighborhood. Again, if you are finding you're only moving your car for street cleaning, you might think about just getting rid of it, and then you can use car share from time to time. And then finally, we have the shared electric moped program, and that can be utilized throughout the neighborhood as well. Next steps, we have public comment this evening, and so again, we will provide responses at the end to feedback and questions, and integrate it into our proposal if we need to make some tweaks to the regulations. Then we will be going to the San Francisco Municipal Transportation Board, where we will present the proposal seeking approval. And if it's approved, we would initiate installation and implementation later this year. And I expect that to extend into early 2024. So we would be 9-12 months away from something being up and running. That's the end of my presentation. And so I will turn it back over to Hakam.
Okay. Thank you, Mari. Thank you for the presentation. So if you would like to make public comments, looks like everyone's joining us via Zoom. It doesn't look like I have any callers. So you want to click on the raised hand feature in Zoom. That'll place you in the queue. And then once I call on you, we'll allow your microphone, and then remember to click on your microphone icon to unmute yourself. Let's see. Okay. Let's hear from Kevin Ortiz. Go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you so much for the presentation. My name is Kevin Ortiz. I am one of the co-founders of Mission Destino, which is a Latino and Indigenous transportation advocacy organization based in the Mission District, as well as the co-founder or the co-president of the San Francisco Latinx Democratic Club. I'm also a resident of the Mission District. I live in the Northeast Mission. I have my entire life. I'm vehemently opposed to the removal of this unmetered parking and adding more meters into the area, as well as regulations within the area, because it's going to negatively impact residents within the area. Particularly, a lot of our folks, particularly Latinos, older seniors, those with disabilities, don't have the ability to just ride a bike already down the way. So what the SFMTA needs to actually do thoughtful community engagement, because I know they were advised to reach out to Mission Destino to actually sit down and hear with our concerns. And there has not been any discussion as of thus far. As a point for the folks that are on this call that want to make public comment, and if you're against this plan, I would recommend signing the petition that we have going right now. We have over 100 signatures within 24 hours opposing this meter change. There needs to be more thoughtful community engagement. I don't care that it's been 10 years down the line that it's happened. There's not been the thoughtful engagement that's happened currently, right now with the community-based organizations and the residents that actually live in the neighborhood, that actually have to circle to find parking, putting in more regulations to force people to move in a time where a lot more folks are working from home. It's going to be a mess, and it's going to continue to exacerbate the living conditions of folks that actually already live in the area. And so you all need to stop and really take the time to actually do the thoughtful community engagement and actual thoughtful planning. But this is a larger systemic issue, because we come in time and time again of having to piecemeal these different plans together where SFMTA is not moving with rhyme or rhythm. You wouldn't be doing this kind of engagement in the sunset. And so it's frustrating to see this happen to a community of concern time and time again, where we have to fight on every single project. We need to have a comprehensive community-based plan.
Hello?
You're on mute.
Sorry, I was saying, thank you, Kevin. Let's go to G Tanji. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, my name is Gitanjali and I live in the Northeast Mission. I've lived here in this particular house for about 12 years now. And I have lived in the Mission and San Francisco for about 32 years now. I love public transit. It's one of my favorite ways to get around. I also normally ride my bicycle or walk everywhere. So I'm not opposed to the idea that more people need to get out of their cars. However, if you do need a car for any particular reason, my husband and I share one car between us, and we use it to go hiking and go places, camping, where we can't go by public transit. And if you are a Mission District resident and you can't afford a garage, because there are many people here, myself included, my husband included, that work in the service industry. We can't afford to pay an extra apartment rent for a car. Basically, we just want to know, because I've read two different things. The Mission Local reported that you'd still need to move your car within 2 hours, even if you had a permit. Is that true or is that not true at a meter?
We're going to answer the questions at the end. So if you will definitely
That's an
address
important
that question, but if you just finish your comments, please.
Yeah, no, that's the most vital question in my mind. So I would love it to hear an answer, a true answer, because it seems like by the proposal that you've stated that this is not true, that if you have a permit, you can park at these meters without paying and without a time limit. The Mission Local said you will be subject to a time limit, you won't have to pay. That question is crucial to whether or not I support this proposal or whether I do not. I also want to see that our businesses will be able to have people who work there be able to get parking for the time that they're going to be at work. It makes no sense to have productivity be destroyed when people have to run out and move their car every 2 hours or every 4 hours.
Thank you, Speaker. Magda, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. My name is Magda. I live on Hampshire Street, right across the Muni Yard, between Mariposa and 17. I don't know if you can put your map on, but if you look at, you are proposing to turn my area in paid only with meters, paid meters only, and I don't understand why, considering like this is a residential building that I live. There are many people who are in the same conditions that other people in this call, they have cars, although they use public transportation, they do need their car and they park on the street currently. Once you turn this to paid meters, where we're gonna park our cars, I've seen in your map that some areas you are considering these RPP and meters as well. And I don't understand why you're not considering these in my block, like why you're not treating us as same as you're treating the other residents around the Mission area.
All right, thank you, Speaker.
Thank you.
Daryl, go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, my name's Daryl Williams. I've been a business owner in the area since '94. I have a commercial photo studio and an event space. And so I have clients that come and use my space during the day, Monday through Friday, and they do photo shoots and film productions and sometimes wedding receptions and sometimes birthday parties. But most of it during the week is businesses doing production of commercial work. And this plan is, I'm not trying to be hyperbolic here. I think this plan is going to destroy my business. And again, I've been engaged in this business since '94 in the area. And I almost feel like my expressing this is fruitless. I don't mean to antagonize anybody, but it almost seems like you guys are going to do what you're going to do. And people call in and they object. Like I've heard you received 4 or 5 calls and they've all been objections. And you say, thank you, caller, or we'll answer your questions when we're done with this presentation, caller. But I don't see what grievances, expressing a grievance as I am doing right now, I don't see what that's going to do any good. I almost feel like this is just a rhetorical exercise on my part because I don't think it matters to you guys. And again, I don't mean to be confrontational, but it's like I've been in this business. Like I said, I've been in this neighborhood, the same neighborhood, conducting the same business since '94. And this is going to destroy my business. And I know my clients come sometimes and they need to look for parking. They do hunt. But you know what? The problem is not as bad as you guys are putting it out to make it out to be, because all my clients do come back and sometimes they shake their head and they say, well, that took a little while. Yeah, it took maybe 10, 15 minutes. And if you make it where there's a 2-hour time limit, I'm on a corner of Mariposa and Hampshire. If you make a 2-hour time limit in my neighborhood, which is what you got projected, that's going to destroy my business. I don't know how to more clearly state it. I'm not being hyperbolic here. It is going to destroy my business. And I don't know what to do about it.
Thank you, Daryl. Sydney, go ahead.
Hi. My name is Sydney. I'm a resident here in the Northeast Mission area, around the 15th and South Van Ness area. And there are times when I don't always drive to work. I drive to work maybe like once every other week. But normally I ride my bike to work on the Embarcadero. So it's like also another nightmare of parking, which is why I'd rather just park in my neighborhood. But it's on times when it's difficult to park, I like come home late at night because I like just for work reasons. But it's like pretty scary to come home at night sometimes. And I was just wondering what in addition to like not agreeing with the residential parking permit additions, or I don't think that there's enough if that's what the proposal is going to be. Also, I would like to raise that the street sweeping is extremely limiting if you're also going to impose all these different like parking restrictions, that I think street sweeping also needs to be looked at, especially the streets that do like the midnight to 6 a.m. Zone. And I agree with Kevin that there just hasn't been community engagement. And also, if this has been a project for 10 years, the world of 10 years ago was extremely different than like the world that we're living in now. So I think that I think that everything that you've all been doing is like I understand like the job that we're all given or that we all have. But it's just outdated. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Sydney. Nicholas? Oh, sorry. Let's go. Nicholas, go ahead.
Hi there. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm Nicholas. I live in the Mission on Folsom Street near 20th, and just wanted to float, like, I understand parking is a challenging thing. It's a limited public resource that you're balancing different factors in this proposal. One area that I wanted to flag that I thought was of note was that there were a limit of 2 permits per a registered street address, or like a registered house or apartment address. And I know that I live with a number of roommates, and I think we end up taking less space because there's more of us in one home, but this would be like a real challenge for us with 3 cars among 6 people and the ability to only get 2 permits. So that was a concern that I wanted to raise. And I know that other groups of people, any family with a 3rd person who all have to drive to work, would be limited by that. So just wanted to flag that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Nicholas. Luke, go ahead.
Yes, hi. My name is Luke. I live on Natoma Street between 14th and 15th. And, you know, I think that this would be a really good solution that is really needed, especially in a very high dense part of the city. Limiting the limited parking situation right now is a real issue on our street where, you know, I've noticed you know, a few people will have up to 5 or 6 vehicles on our street and park them long term, longer than 72 hours. And that's an issue, especially for someone like myself who actually uses their car every day to get to and from work. There may be maybe this will help people reevaluate alternative transportation options and maybe to get rid of a few of their cars that they may not be using. I really think this is a good idea, especially since right now there's such a limited amount of parking spaces and there's a few people taking up the majority of the spots and really monopolizing on the parking spaces that we already have. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Luke. Itala?
Yes, hello, good afternoon. My name is Itala Portal, and I am a resident of the Mission District, northeast side on Florida 19th Street. As I was seeing your proposal, I see it that as I know, I live in one of the largest complex on this block. We have over 245 units. Our parking spaces do not have the capacity to supply a parking spot for every unit, unfortunately. Then there's a new affordable housing unit that was constructed without parking, which I found it ridiculous. And I see neighbors and the new neighbors that are coming in struggling to even park that one car that they have. Not everybody has more than one car. Mostly everybody has one car, but I do find it that the parklet, like the farmhouse restaurant, has their loading dock. They requested for more loading dock in front of MLBS on 19th between Alabama and Florida. They've taken that whole section. They rarely use it. It's taking up parking spaces, and the parklet where they're at, they have so much yellow zoning for unloading and loading and dropping off. It's just, I find it as an abuse. please consider taking off their parklet so they can use that loading for their business uses and the other businesses nearby. Where I see on the block of Alabama 19th that goes around Mission Cliff, the gym, I see that it has a 4-hour time limit, and then the block over by where I'm located, it only has would be proposed to have a 2-hour time limit residential parking. I feel that you should reconsider that. And please note that the people living in this community, they do not make money like these members do. And that parking space should, the parking permits, a lot of these families won't be able to afford it.
Okay, thank you, Itala. Juanita, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Juanita. I live in the Natoma Street area. I'm a senior, and I find sometimes it's very difficult on our street to find parking because there are certain people on our street who have 5 or 6 cars and keep them parked there 24/7 until the streets are cleaned. So there's a lot of abuse going on. I'm not sure if there's a one-size-fits-all answer to all these questions, because I understand, I empathize with the people who are in different areas, and each street has a different problem. I know that at nighttime, it's impossible for me to find parking close to my home, that I actually have to walk sometimes in dark areas. I'm a senior. There's homelessness going on. There's streets, there's sidewalks that are unsafe, and I can't park ever in front of my house. So I think the very first person who has a lot of frustrations about the whole system, I empathize with him. And I do think that, and I know you've done a lot of work, but I think more work needs to be done, and it needs to be done on a street by street basis and looking at the issues of each street. And I thank you for looking into this, because it is a problem, and we need to keep talking about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Juanita. John L., go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mari, for the presentation. John Los Huertos, I live at Shotwell and 15th. I've been here 17 years. You know, they've recently built a couple new affordable housing unit buildings within the block that are, it's just becoming so challenging to park here, you know, for someone who needs a car for work. It's like I have to schedule my day around what time I'm going to get home so I can park my car within a couple blocks. So I'm a big proponent of this plan. I can't wait till you get it installed. There are, like the last person who commented, I think you should maybe take some of the comments that are made today on a street by street basis. But as far as Shotwell Street is concerned, the other thing I'm looking forward to is we have a lot of people camping in cars, which I think that'll alleviate that, or they'll have to go elsewhere. I mean, it's just a challenge. So anyway, that's what I have. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Lindsay, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Holden Lindsay. I am representing Dandelion Chocolate here in the area near Alabama Harrison 16th Street. And of course, I, among other surrounding businesses, I'm sure, are concerned about our workforce being able to come in and work their 6, 8, 10, 12-hour shift at times and not having to move their cars. Certainly understand the residential aspect of it, but yeah, I think echoing our first speaker, I really it would really disrupt businesses in the area for workers who typically work longer than a 4-hour shift to be able to not worry about their cars. And I looked up RPP, and that appears that only 1 permit per business address is allowed, so that wouldn't work either. So yeah, just very concerned about the ability of our workforce to get to work and stay there and not be concerned about their car. Thank you for holding this hearing.
Thank you, Holden. Maureen, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. My name is Maureen and I'm at 15th and Folsom, and I support this program as well. Another issue that we have in our neighborhood here is that we are a free parking lot for BART. Certainly before the pandemic was prevalent, and it's starting to come back now. So that if neighbors leave during the day, they can't find parking when they get home. If someone takes their child to school, they can't find parking when they get home. So I understand the other callers and their concerns, but I think in basically from South Van Ness to Harrison, 14th to 16th, I think this would really help alleviate us being the BART parking lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. Robbie, go ahead.
Hi there. Yeah, my name is Robbie. I live in the Mission over at 17th in Alabama, and yeah, I'm in support of this plan. There are a lot of non-Mission residents dumping cars and rental cars being dumped here, moving vans and other commercial vehicles that get dumped in the Mission for long periods of time, and it just makes it really difficult to find parking for Mission residents. I think this plan is a good solution. It's not perfect, but perfect is just really not possible living in cities these days. So thanks, and continue on the good work.
Thank you, Robbie. Rich, go ahead, Rich.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm a resident right in the 15th Street, close to UCSF. Been in the Mission since 2007-8. And I think things in general are not too bad, and I'm worried about the changes. I'm opposed to this overall. I think it needs a lot of fine tuning. One of the things that I think can alleviate the loss of spaces is to add additional regulations that were not covered, which is preventing cars of a certain length or height that take up more than one parking space. That alone would, free up more spaces. Secondly, I see the areas I'm worried about are around UCSF, the blue dashed areas, as well as the orange dashed areas that don't have RPP, and those concern me a lot. These are the areas that myself and my housemates use very regularly to park, and we would really be upset about losing those spaces. And to have to park further out also brings up a safety concern with a public safety issue in terms of walking through unsafe neighborhoods late at night. We want to really preserve things as they are with the accessible parking close by for residents. And additionally, concerned about the limits on the number of permits. I heard it's 2 for a resident, 1 for a business. We want to find some way to create more of those permits available so that we can continue to use the parking that we have nearby, and are really concerned about these changes. Thanks.
Thank you, Rich. SC, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Essie Kimball. I am the campus manager for La Escuela International School, which is on 18th Street and Shotwell. We are a kindergarten through 8th grade. We have over 200 students and 55 staff members on site every day. And this, you're proposing to remove all day parking and limit the number of parking permits, which would drastically impact our school and our faculty. Our faculty travel from fair distances from the East Bay, from the South Bay, to work at our school and teach our children that live in and near the Mission. Our teachers aren't able to leave their classrooms every 2 hours, every 4 hours to move their cars. A lot of our teachers do already commute via public transportation, but we do have some teachers that need to commute via car daily. And this project would greatly impact our school and our teachers' ability to stay in school, stay with the children, if they're not able to commute to work in a way that works best for them. So we are opposed to the current new proposal.
Thank you, Essie. Peter, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, I'm a Northeast Mission resident. My name is Peter. While I really like the idea of expanding the area for residential parking permits, I think that the new proposal is kind of outrageous because if we, for example, look at the idea of if we look at the area of where the John O'Connell High School is, the Mistral Street and the 19th Street, where like you're proposing a 4-hour time limit over there, and it's not gonna get rid of the what are they called? The recreational vehicles that are parked over there. It's definitely not gonna get rid of them. But it's gonna limit parking for actual residents of the neighborhood. Also the pretty much all of the dashed orange and blue lines are all of that parking is going to become not available for residents. I have one car, but I usually use public transit to go to school. And this proposal is effectively going to leave me with like approximately a block worth of space to leave my car for a couple of days between between the street cleaning, and that's just basically gonna turn into an absolute nightmare. Yeah. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Peter. Tucker, go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me. I'm talking on behalf of the San Francisco Motorcycle Club. We've been in the mission since 1946 at 18th and Folsom. I have a couple of questions. I'm curious why parklets or why additional parklets are being considered if parking scarcity is an issue. And then another question would be, would improved enforcement of the length of parking limitations that already exist have an impact? That seems to have come up a few times. And I'm just curious if those two factors have been considered prior to, enforcing payment on people who live and work in the neighborhood. Another question, are there any exemptions for churches, other nonprofits, organizations like that in the neighborhood? And thank you, by the way, for submitting yourself to this. I'm sure it's probably not your favorite part of the job, but I appreciate your time.
Tucker, do you mind just giving us, what was the second question about? The first
Sure.
was parklets, the last was exemptions. What was the second question?
I believe there are regulations about length of parking, how long you can leave your car in a single spot in the neighborhood already. And I was wondering if improved enforcement of those regulations would alleviate some of the concerns people have voiced here, and perhaps ease on some of the metaphorical camping of leaving one's car in the same place in perpetuity.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Tucker.
Thank you.
Let's hear from Jolene.
Hi, thank you so much for taking my call. I've been a resident here since 2001. I live at Hampshire and 20th, and I'm also a volunteer for the Franklin Square Park. And I have a couple of questions and comments. I guess my first comment is that I support the limits to the number of permits per household, especially if there aren't as many licensed drivers. So perhaps there could be an exception made for households that have more than 2 licensed drivers, that perhaps they could have more permits. I think that would be something to consider. And my questions are regarding the parking area by Franklin Square Park. It's the continuation of Hampshire Street north of 17th Street. I'm a little confused about, is there parking regulations there now, or are you proposing changes? Because it seems pretty unregulated at this point. My second question is that I am on a working group for the SFMTA Potrero Muni Yard redevelopment project, which is directly across the street from Franklin Square at 17th and Bryant. And my understanding is that this proposed redevelopment will add 500 housing units, and that it will also add about 150 more employees or operators for the buses with the expansion of the project. And yet there is 0 parking that is planned for this specific development. And I'm wondering how this current parking plan, how does it contemplate dealing with that huge influx of new residents as well as employees? And specifically, I'm wondering, are those employees going to be eligible for some kind of exception? Or it just seems like too much at this point. So thank you.
Thank you, Jolene. Joe M., go ahead.
Thank you, Joe Morse. I too am a 20+ year resident of Natoma between 14th and 15th Street. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to the MTA staff. I know this is a big, hairy problem. Parking is never non-controversial, especially in the densest part of the city in the Northeast Mission. I'd like to point out a few facts. I strongly oppose this proposal, just as I did 10 years ago when the MTA tried to pull this before, and the community soundly rejected it because of the likelihood of increased enforcement and revenue operations. Our families struggle to find parking on our streets here, especially our one little block. There are households that have multiple cars. That's likely because there are multiple people living in those households, as some of the earlier callers alluded to. In reality, most people in San Francisco are multimodal. Those who live here, those who visit here. We cannot move them from mode to mode in a fast method. Trying to implement additional residential parking permits will cause simply an increase in enforcement and revenue for the MTA. And I think you'll find that just about everybody who lives here and actually drives here will oppose that. So don't want to seem too controversial here. I do appreciate the MTA taking the time, but I would strongly urge you to do more and better community outreach, as Luke mentioned, or as some of the callers mentioned at the beginning, and to take this on a block by block basis, understand some of the actual problems of the block instead of a large blanket solution. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe. Erlinda Juarez, go ahead. Erlinda, remember you need to click on the microphone icon to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so I have lived here since 1968, between 19th and 20th on Hampshire. We are mostly residential. We have one liquor store at the end of the block. I don't know if he has a loading zone or not. He certainly never uses it. All his trucks double park in the middle of the street at all hours. We don't have any parklets. We don't have any bike lanes. It's all single family homes, except for the end of the blocks where we have 2 apartment buildings on either side on 19th. No one ever asks anybody when they put in extra apartment buildings. I don't know how many people are living there. I don't know how many cars they have, but making this a 2-hour parking is ridiculous for everybody who lives here. Now, I work here in the city, and the city has asked me to find alternate transportation so I don't take up parking at Station 49 for the San Francisco Fire Department, which is why I take my scooter, rain or shine, on most days to work. That means that I, unlike someone who stays home and works out of their home, cannot run home every 2 hours to move my car so that I can continue parking. I have found your map hard to read. It would have been better if there had been some streets numbers. I mean, I can figure it out, but it's not great. And I read your accompanying sheet that says all kinds of different confusing things about what kind of parking we have. Right now, I have a W for a parking permit. And I don't know how that's going to be affected in the future, but it looks like 2-hour parking from what I'm reading, even though it says on your sheet that we will not be affected and that we can continue to. Okay, I guess that's it.
Thank you, Erlinda. Kendall, go ahead.
Hi, thank you again for kind of taking the time to go through all of this. And I know there's
a lot to balance here. And certainly while I support finding ways to make sure that there are spaces for those who need to be in the neighborhood, I think that I would also have to be opposed to this in its current form. I've lived in the city for 13 years and have lived previously in residential parking permit zones and now live here. To be honest, when I moved to the neighborhood, I was worried about moving out of an RPP zone because I thought that it would limit our ability to park, but have found that it's been okay. We have one car that I share with myself and my partner, bike, use public transit, so on and so forth. But I worry that there's not going to be space for us to park if this plan goes through in its current form. Specifically, my concern is that we live between 21st and 22nd Street on Alabama, which is currently excluded from the new RPP zone. And I worry that, as we push all of the people who are currently parking sort of at will in the zone that is not yet regulated, they will come over to our unregulated couple of blocks. And that would be, commercial people, people who work for San Francisco General, people in all of these areas are going to now be concentrated in the 2-block zone that myself and my neighbors will be able to park on. So my specific concern here is, really what consideration has been or will be given to the neighborhood residents that are directly adjacent to this and are not going to be included in the new permit and not included in the W permit zone. Because we're specifically us adjacent to the zone exactly are going to be limited to about 2 blocks of our ability to park, and also can't, support moving our car every 4 or every 2 hours throughout the day. Will we be able to apply for a permit in those areas or expand the map to include our homes? So I'm hoping to have some more thoughtful assessment of what this looks like for neighbors that are currently not included on that block by block basis.
All right, thank you, Kendall. Adrian, go ahead.
Hey, yeah, so I'm a resident in the Mission at 18th and York. And my feeling is that this is a regressive tax on residents and employees in the area, because it seems to me that there's no new parking being created and the number of cars isn't being reduced by a tax or by a program like this. Like everyone who has a car here, well, I mean, I don't know who these people who own 6 cars are, but the people who own 1 car or 2 cars aren't going to get rid of their car or leave the area just because there's fewer 12-hour parking zones. So who are these 2-hour and 4-hour parking zones for, is my question. Who's benefiting from that time period of parking? And why are they the priority in this plan? So that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. Eva, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Eva. I'm a worker at a retail business on Folsom and 14th. We employ about 200 people, and I really wanted to raise some concerns about the financial impact for workers. Our open hours are 9 to 9 every day. However, there are people who work before and after those hours. And just doing some quick math for people who work 5 shifts a week, this would be an added about $1,000 cost per year if the paid parking were instituted, which is just really unfortunate. We're service industry workers. We don't make very much money. Many of us used to live in the Mission but had to leave because we were priced out. We pay to come into the city to do our work. Many of us can't use BART for various reasons, safety being one of them. However, BART is often unreliable and doesn't serve the areas where we come from. So I just really wanted to put that out there because this is something that has a pretty significant impact on us. And not to even say how disruptive it is throughout the workday to have to worry about your parking or having to park very far away. So I definitely am not in support of this. And yeah, thank you for listening.
Thank you. Our next speaker, initials MLVS.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so I'm the executive director of Mission Language and Vocational School, right in the sections that this proposal is going to affect. I am born and raised in the Mission District, unfortunately was displaced because of lack of rent control and greed from landlords. And so a lot of us who come to work to be community servers, we serve the community, come from outside of San Francisco. And like the previous person says, we actually pay to come into the city. So on top of that, we now have to be very careful with our budget. And then most of our staff are teachers and case managers, and so they are running workshops and classes and don't have the capacity to, one, leave every 2 hours. So that means what? One, they have to pay. Two, if they don't move their car, they get an $84 ticket. This whole thing that the city does when they create plans and proposals, they never have the community sit down and have a conversation with them and say, how is this going to affect you? Because the blocks where our school is located has a different problem than maybe the other school a couple blocks down. And so this feels very, that like this is serving a very specific group of people. And again, the community is getting hurt by this. A lot of our employees are working class citizens. They don't have it in the budget to add all this money that they have to pay for parking or eat up tickets that are $84, $90. So I am completely against that. The 200 plus people that work in my building are completely against this. And the people that live around the building are completely against this. I think that you guys do not ever take the community into consideration when making these plans. Community members have to be at the table to have this conversation. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you. Our next speaker is initials EF. Remember to click on the microphone icon to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay, thank you. I want to echo all the other people who are upset by this. Limiting the 4-hour parking is just outrageous. I've lived here for 14 years around on Folsom and 20th Street. And this is the first I've heard of this. I'm so glad that I got the chance to get on here and speak. But there is no way that we can live without being incredibly stressed out about this. All of these regulations are just too much. It's too extreme. It's going to affect a lot of people. And I really want to know, who is this actually benefiting? Like, it's just not. It's not benefiting the community. You know, I think it said in some like blanket statement that it you know, it's for, you know, the people who work here and the people who live here. But no, it's not. It's terrible. It's going to have terrible consequences, especially for people who don't make very much money, who can't afford to, you know, board up their cars, or, you know, paying all these parking tickets is bad enough. And I just wonder how you're going to deal with what everyone says here, how you're going to take that into consideration, and how you're going to modify this proposal based on what everyone says. That's very important to me that you address that. And I also want to say that many of us are single adults who live in one home. And, you know, I live in a house of 5 people. 3 of us have cars. So what, do we need to draw straws in order to get permits? This is just the 2-hour parking, the meters, the 4-hour parking, all of it. I mean, I just can't tell you, none of it is helpful. Like, I oppose it all. Thank you for listening.
All right, thank you. Rodriguez, go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, hello, go ahead.
Hi, yes, I'm a resident. I've been living here for the past 45 years. This proposal doesn't seem to be doesn't seem it's going to be helping anyone. It sounds like a much more tax revenue for the city, more excuse to pass out parking tickets, and these parking tickets are I love how no one's mentioned the prices, even to get the permits. 2 per household is not going to work. We have 4 adults that live in one household. So you're telling me only 2 of us are able to own vehicles in our own residence? It doesn't make any sense. The 2 hours, I don't see how this is going to help. You know, it just sounds like it's just an excuse to give out more tickets to residents who can't afford to pay these tickets, and it's just more tax revenue for the city. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Rodriguez. Christian, go ahead.
Hi, yeah, I'd like to echo a lot of the same concerns as some of the other residents. I think there's a need to look at this from a more compartmentalized way and analyze maybe not block to block, but smaller area by smaller area, because it seems like there are conflicting needs across the neighborhood. And I guess I'd want to know what else the city has considered in instead of this, with whether increased enforcement of 72-hour parking would help with some of the people who say, we have people with a lot of vehicles who only move for street cleaning and take up spots. Similar things on maximum number of permits per household, if there are considerations for multiple adults sharing one household, and whether we can separate those from people who have multiple cars for one person, or similar, like a permit per license program. And then also some clarity, since I think there was some confusion from the Mission Local article about whether people with residential permits would be required to still move their car every 2 hours in a residential parking zone, because I think that was a little bit confusing. I think that article and the MTA have conflicting information. And then also a question on whether this would affect parking in front of driveways of private residences, and whether that would still be required to move every 2 hours. Yeah, the last thing I want to say is it just seems like there need to be more tailored recommendations for smaller areas in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. Deborah?
Hi there. This is obviously an extremely complicated situation, and most of what I have to do is echoing other people's concerns with the proposal. I want to particularly echo the question about whether some of the problems that people are trying to solve with the new plan could be solved better by enforcement of existing regulations. I also would like some clarity on questions that have come up from other people, like who counts as a teacher? We saw that teachers could get parking permits, but who counts as a teacher? How many? What does that really mean? And then you must be doing modeling. And I would very much like to know how much revenue is actually at stake from what sources, and that presumably putting in parking meters is going to increase revenue. But what are you really looking at in your models? Do you believe truly that you will be increasing how much circulation will be increased? How many more people would have opportunities to park if you implement these changes? And then, on one hand, you're modeling that, and then on the other hand, presumably you're also modeling the in some fashion, the discomfort and difficulty created to different groups of users in the environment. And I would really love to see a lot more details about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Peter?
There we
Peter
go.
Sam. There
Hi
you go.
there.
Yeah, I wanted to echo somebody a photographer on Treat or Shotwell, that it is a bit hyperbolic to suggest that it takes 30 minutes to park. I'm a photographer and I rent out my space as well at Bryant and 20th Street, and 10, 15 minutes absolute max. And I know this from experience from daily people coming in and having to park. And I always encourage them to not do that. And of course, a huge, huge solution to a lot of this would be to have a parking area, because everybody asks me where the nearest place to park is available. And that is only SF General as currently. And then one more item is to mention that the person on 19th and Florida about her issue with Farmhouse Thai, I would totally agree. Their permits are way overblown for what they need, and they are taking up way too much parking. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Alex, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
I would like to echo some of Deborah's questions and also ask a few of my own. So would the 72-hour rule still be in effect? Would street sweeping still be the same? How many spots during those max street sweeping hours? I know Monday, Wednesday, Friday mornings, there are not a lot of spaces to park already. What's the proportion of, like those spaces available versus people trying to park at those hours? I'd love to know kind of more of that data that you guys are basing your decisions on, and more transparency would be awesome. I'm definitely still undecided on how I feel about this, but I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Sounds like the dog had a question too. But anyway, John, go ahead.
Hi, what I'd like to know is how many people are attending this meeting? That's one question. The second question is, Mari indicated that there were some blocks that had a limited time and a residential parking overlay. I'd like those blocks identified. And she said there's only a couple, and that's what I'm interested in. And the third thing is, I'd like to talk about something specifically on this plan, and that's the block bounded by South Van Ness, 17th, Folsom, and 18th Street. And Shotwell runs right through the middle of it. It's indicated that there's an awful lot of residential parking available, when in reality, those blocks are largely consumed with a lot of driveways, white zones. For instance, the Escola International has like, I think 400 feet of white zone in that area. Then there's the green zones and yellow zones as well. One way to mitigate that discrepancy would be to extend the residential parking 4-hour overlay a block south on Folsom, on Folsom between 17th and 18th. And those are pretty much my comments. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, John. Bonnie, go ahead.
Okay, yes, I work on Petro Avenue and I drive in because of where I live in the East Bay, and we have a number of people who drive in. I mean, this would, as someone pointed out, add at least $1,000 to our costs just to get to work. And, you know, it really doesn't work to have to move your car every 2 to 4 hours. And if you want businesses to actually be able to work in San Francisco, I mean, this company's been in San Francisco since 1984 in various locations. We've been here on Petro since 2018. And I mean, this is the sort of thing that makes the move to the burbs where you have, you know, great big business centers with huge parking lots. You know, I for one feel like it's a tone deaf money grab. That this is your flyers going up the other week was the first that anybody around here had heard of it. And it doesn't really seem to fit what actually goes on. You know, our block, for example, our side of the block has absolutely no residences. It has businesses. And I see, as well as our business, I see a lot of people in the other businesses, you know, parking and then going into the business. You know, there are ones that have customers that go in and out, but they have parking lots. I really feel that, you know, this is just the wrong solution. It's like you're trying to fit what you want to do, but it doesn't actually really solve the problem. You know, it just generates money in between the meters and the parking permits that, you know, who knows if people can afford them, and tickets. You know, it just doesn't really seem to fit the area.
All right, thank you.
That's it.
Thank
Thanks.
you, Bonnie. Maddie, go ahead.
Thank you. I am an employee of a long-standing business in this area. So we're on Harrison between 16th and 17th. And our company has taken up this building for almost 30 years now, and we are against this proposal. We believe that these regulations will negatively impact our business and employee productivity, just like others have stated. In fact, many of our employees need to commute via their cars for various reasons, including having children and other family members that rely on them. And this proposal for paid parking would actually increase our employee costs by at least $1,200 per annum. And keep in mind, that's on the low end with no rate increases or tickets that they may incur. So the number will likely be relatively higher. You know, currently we have 12-hour parking and we'd like to keep it that way. And several other commenters have given us a view and questions into regarding the increase of enforcement of these current time limits. So we're quite curious as to what's being done about that currently and in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Maddie. Paul, go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the presentation. It's a great presentation, but I didn't see anything there about the enforcement. And it seems that the main problem here is that we have more rules that we can enforce already. And if we can't enforce it, then maybe we shouldn't be implementing it. So that's my comment. And then I also had a question. Can I ask a question now, or is it a separate section?
No, ask your question and then we're going to have them answered at the end.
Okay, sounds good. So the question that I have is if and when Sunday metering and evening hours are going to go into effect in the city elsewhere, is it also going to happen in this area too, where the paid parking is proposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Pedro?
Hi, thanks. I live on Hampshire Street between 17th and Mariposa. I manage the HOA for our building. The current plan doesn't account for any RPP in our entire block. We see that as a safety issue. We'd like to understand why the consideration for not having any RPP in our block and around the entire Porter Yard project. It's all paid parking. I think it's been stated here, there will be about 500 units that will be placed across the street from us. That's over 1,000 people that would come in that would have to have some cars. We would like to request the consideration to layer paid and permit at least on our block, if not around the entire premise of the Porter Yard. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you. Al Gonzalez, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, I'm a resident of the Northeast Mission for the last 46 years. I am in support of this new proposal for said reasons by previous callers, but my main concern is all this existing and new development with zero parking. These cities allowing these new developments with zero parking because they are in a dense transit hub. With that said, I wanted to know their eligibility for RPPs. If it is eligibility, they're just going to flood the area and it's going to make it hard as well. And we're going to be competing for parking while paying for these permits. So my concern is that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Al.
Yeah.
Ishmael? Yes,
Yeah,
go ahead.
good evening. I'd like to refer myself back. We've been here since 1972. We've raised 7 children and grandchildren here, and there's been a lot of changes taking place. But the main one that I still object to is that both City Hall and some of the different agencies do not take us for granted. They actually take us for granted and make decisions. For example, when you call onto this meeting, for you to eliminate the majority of us, you made it so that you have to have a computer and be computer savvy. A lot of us are not, and we wanted to put an input into what's going on. And as I've said, I've been here well over 50 years, and I've always known that to be the case where we were expected to be quiet about everything. Now, if a while back, you and your colleagues decided to put meters in our block, you never told anybody about it, and yet, because I heard it through someone who works for the city, we showed up out there on Mission Rec, which is on between 20th and 21st on what's that Treat and Harrison, and we showed up about 75 of us, though we were not invited to, and yet you were about to put meters in each one of our houses. Now, this is an example of what I'm saying. You are doing it something that you eliminate our input, and that's not fair because we all pay taxes, and by the same token, we have rights in this. I would suggest that the next time we have a meeting in this regards, that we have it at our local site, and we have many places we can have it, and you would actually have the more, how can I say, accountable group that would actually tell you what we want done. I'm not going to speak about anything else besides this, but I do look forward to having a meeting here locally when it comes to matters of this nature. Thank you.
All right, thank you. One thing before we moved on, I just wanted to address Ismail. I'm sorry if there was some confusion, but you were not required to have a computer to participate. You could have called in. We talked about, I'm showing it on the slide now since you are online, but there was the option to call in as well, just again, for clarification. Let's hear from Doug.
Hi there. Thanks for listening to all of our comments. I work at 20th and Bryant, and I do video production. And so that's kind of why I need a car most days is for gear. It's not a large commercial vehicle. It's just a sedan. And I really want to reiterate the fact that I think this is very much a block by block issue. I get to work sometime between 8:30 and 9:30 on most days, and it takes me anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes to find parking. Sometimes it's 1 minute. And I often go out in the middle of the day, come back. It's even easier in the middle of the day. And in the evening, it's the easiest. So I really do think, I'm not discounting the experiences of other people. I'm sure there are people who have a really tough time in certain areas, but in that area in particular, it's actually not that bad. And I fear that if some of these things that people have been saying are correct, such as one permit per business address, or the fact that there might be a time limit on meters, even with a permit. Some of that stuff, I think, is going to really hurt the ability of people to come in and work in a way that's actually sustainable. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Doug. John Lee.
Good evening. I'm a resident of the Northeast Mission area, and I'm against the current and long proposed changes. Not only are these permits costly for residents on top of the cost of owning vehicles, but it is likely the case that only those who pay for permits would actually move their vehicles, and those who do not would actually not move their vehicles. Additionally, the current proposed parking changes would add parking meters, which would further hurt those who use vehicles to commute and work in nearby areas. Individuals already go through a lot to move their vehicles weekly, and adding these time limits would further impact those who have a lot on their plates. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Excuse me, I don't mean to butcher your name, but if I want to say it's Hasibe. Hasibe, go ahead. Your microphone is open. We cannot hear you though.
Can you hear me?
Yes, there you go.
Sorry. So I'm against the proposal because it seems that it's not benefiting the residents, it's benefiting visitors. I think the proposal should benefit residents, like prioritize them, also like workers. So I think permits can be developed for local workers and for residents of the area. Also, the parking time should be like planned from Potrero to Harrison, all those blocks, because we all live in this neighborhood. Also, I have found many houses that have garages or driveways. They use them as a storage. So they have parking space in front of the garage, and so that means they occupy too much space. And yeah, I think also the street cleaning should be twice, like every first and second Monday of the month, or every Wednesday and Friday of the month. Like they clean every week, but the clean is not even that deep. Literally, we have paid so many tickets and it's a lot of money. We pay a lot of taxes, a lot of rents. Like the city is very expensive and it doesn't provide the same services. Like people have tried to get into our car at least 3 times. And we still have to pay for tickets. We still have to pay for the gas. Once I tried to find a parking place for an hour. Literally, who's paying for my gas? And it's just to park. So definitely residents should be prioritized. We should have permits to park anytime, anywhere in the neighborhood. Workers should also get that benefit. And the visitors and clients for some businesses, they should take Uber, they should walk, and they should pay for the 2-hour, 3-hour parking. But definitely this proposal is benefiting nobody.
Okay.
The proposal
Thank
should be
you.
for the residents.
Thank you. Is it Hasibe? Is that how you pronounce it?
Hasibe, yes. Thank you.
All right, excellent. Thank you. F. Rodriguez, go ahead. First initial F, last name
Hi.
Rodriguez.
My name is Fernando Rodriguez, and I'm a longtime resident here, and I've seen a lot of changes through my whole life here. I know parking's an issue. Well, I think it's a big issue for San Francisco in general, but this new proposal seems to just make things even worse. To start off with permits, the new permit rule, where permits are already around 160. So if the new permit is with 2 per household, if you get a third one, they're talking about doubling the cost for it. And if you want a fourth one, even if you qualify for it, it's like 3 times the amount. So unfortunately, that's just, for a lot of people that hurts their wallet too much. And so that's one thing. And I think much more important is that we customize this plan a lot more per block or section by section, because every block has its own needs. I live closer to Potrero, and I understand that people who work at the hospital need parking, which is, I get it. But then we have a mixed bag here where we have hospital, families that live here, and businesses. So we just need much more of a customized plan to do this, to do it well. And I think, a better committee so that, have the actual people who live in the residency come to a meeting and, hey, this is our issue and this is what we can do to, figure out so we can, help everyone out here. And that's it. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Peter, go ahead. Peter Diggs. Remember to click on the microphone icon to unmute yourself.
Okay, I'm sorry. Is that good?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I've lived here for about 30 years. Bought this place then. My concern is there a consideration for those who have invested in the area and the value of their property, that if you change parking to make it more difficult, more complicated for residents, then that would be a negative to selling property. That's my concern. Adding limits is negative and will have an impact on someone who's invested into the area and then trying to sell, and then these things get presented as a negative. That's my comment. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Peter. Giovanna, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Giovanna Perez. I stay between 20th and 21st and Harrison Street, and I'm against all of this because I work in Hayward, and when I come back home, it's probably like around 3:30, 4:30, and I can never find parking. I sometimes have to wait outside for like 2 or 3 hours because I have the 2 schools here, John O'Connell, the other little elementary school, and also the rec center and 2 restaurants, and there's never parking. And I don't think that this will help any of the residents out here. I think that's it.
All right, thank you, Giovanna.
You're welcome.
And C, go ahead.
Hello, wow. I live at 18th and Folsom, and I've been in this part of this process for a good many years now. And I've seen Mari try to really work with people block by block to at least understand the conditions. I mean, I know taking a look at this map at first glance must be very shocking with all the colors, but there's actually some good stuff there. And what I wonder about is what will happen if we reject this outright, like they did the rest of the mission. They just put up meters. So let's be careful about what we do here. I mean, I'm in good. I don't love this, but I actually kind of understand the map a little bit. I am concerned about the economic impact on quite a few of our residents and workers, and we need to take that into account. And definitely we need to have a public meeting. There's no reason that we should be doing this all remotely. So good luck, Mari. She's a good lady and having in some difficult times here. Bye, neighbors. I hope we see you soon.
All right, thank you, Ann. Christy, go ahead. Oh, sorry. Try that again. Go ahead, Christy.
There I am, unmuted now.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, cool. Hi. Well, thank you for doing this. I live on 19th and San Carlos, and I bought my car purely for recreational purposes, and also occasionally, like 4 or 5 times a year, I work outside of San Francisco and have to drive to work. I pretty much can't use my car when I want because of the parking situation as it is. Like if I want to go out on a Friday or Saturday night and drive my car, if I come back and try and park, I have driven around. I counted once on my the thing that counts your miles on the car. It took me 5 miles of driving around in circles to find a parking spot. and it can be up to an hour, hour and a half sometimes. And so it's already really hard to find parking sometimes in my neighborhood. I find parking when I park immediately after street cleaning. I'm concerned about the misinformation. I know that Mission Local article didn't seem to reference the letter we received. The letter says that if you have a residential parking permit, the time limits do not apply to you unless you're in the paid section. I would like confirmation of that because a lot of the other commenters have said that residential parking permit, we will still have to move the car. And since I don't drive my car to work, that's gonna just I'm gonna end up getting tons of tickets, which I really can't afford because I'm a poor person in San Francisco. I'm also curious about if it's going to affect the street cleaning times, because only because of the variation of street cleaning times am I able to park my car. Like I'll be able to move it to one spot before work and then go to work on public transportation, and, you know, like that kind of idea. So those are my concerns. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christy. Sheila, go ahead.
Thank you very much for holding this this meeting and taking these public comments. I just want to thank you first. My name is Sheila DeBlanc. I live over on 15th Street, and just actually today, to make it to public speak at this meeting, I walked a total of 5 blocks, 2 blocks over and 3 blocks just from where I had to park for residential parking. It's very difficult to find parking around where I live. Now, there have been times where I've basically I've had roommates come out and park a car for me. I do have a physical disability, not enough to get any type of disability parking, but because I just can't physically walk the distances anymore. I'm not even that old. And I do know that there's a lot of seniors who live around in the area and people with small children as well. The other thing is late at night, coming home, walking long distances. Is there going to be additional safety measures? There's really nothing for these long, treacherous walks that we are making because there is just not enough available parking. I'm against this measure because I see this accentuating the problem more, where we're going to be walking more, not able to afford parking. And fortunately, all of the neighbors around here are wonderful people and they all help each other out as much as they can and move cars and try to allow people in. But it's getting more and more difficult for residents to have eyes on their property. The break-ins are getting more, and just the fact that, again, these long walks are getting to be really difficult. So as we're moving out to paid parking, parking with meters, we really need to address both the residents, and there's a lot of people who work around here too, and they work late nights. There's some areas that do fabrication, and so I know that they're working late at night in those buildings, which increases my safety as someone who has to walk by many, many buildings to get home. But at the same time, I know they're going to run into problems because I see them traveling around and even asking, hey, can I pull up in here real quick to do some work? So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheila. Alana, go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi. So one of the concerns that I have is for a city that prides itself on equity, this measure doesn't seem to focus on the fact that this would disproportionately affect the working class individuals in the neighborhood, where individuals who might be working in the neighborhood would have to pay for additional parking or have to be paying for these parking meters, and individuals who might work at nighttime would have to then wake up during the day to now move their cars while they should be sleeping and preparing for the next day. Additionally, for a measure that's been on the ballot essentially or on the pages for about 10 years, and it hasn't been supported for 10 years, it seems strange that we continue to bring it up, knowing that our community has said no to this for so many years and already. And in addition to this, I previously lived in another area in San Francisco where we did have the parking permits, and really the only thing it did was make parking more difficult for the residents who lived there. There were still plenty of individuals who would park in the parking zones, you know, where it says 2 hours for individuals who don't have the parking pass, and consistently there was never any parking available. We already live in a small city that doesn't have enough parking. Perhaps what we should be focusing on is making sure that the new complexes that are creating more traffic should be ensuring that they have parking underneath their structures or some sort of way to manage the amount of cars that they're increasing in that area that they're now targeting. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Alana. Natalie, go ahead.
Hi, thank you for putting this all together. This seems like quite a puzzle for everyone to figure out. I work where I have to have street parking. I get up around 5 o'clock in the morning. I leave to go to my car about 6, and I get to work at 7 a.m. and then I don't get off work until about 7:30 p.m. and sometimes not even till 8 p.m. And then I come home and I have to drive around for 30 to 45 minutes looking for a parking spot. And that's not always that way, but it is on certain nights a week, like Tuesdays, like street cleaning nights, the night before the street cleaning. I'm over on 20th and Folsom. And so there's a lot of issues, I think, in our case over on this side. It seems like there's a lot of bad actors with cars on cinder blocks, like a van that has its back hatch open, that has an encampment living out the back, people living in and out of their cars, people tailgating in and out of their cars. And I don't know, do they have residential parking stickers or not? You can't really tell or not. And so I think that's not fair for the community just to assume that they have them when I know very well that they haven't been checked. And so I can't actually be like the SFMTA police and watch cars to see like who's parking and shouldn't parking there. And I think that we would have never been in this problem to begin with had they actually ticketed the people and towed their cars that should not be there. There's a lot of RVs that are living on the street. Those are our parking spots. And I do walk 3 or 4 blocks to get to, and I'm fine with that. But, you know, like someone else said, I think that's not good for people that are more handicapped. It's not fair. And it's also not safe to be walking like 5. I mean, after I've been working for, 14 hours on my feet, and then I have to come home and walk like 6 blocks in the dark at night where it's unsafe. I just think that the bad actors need to leave and take care of the residential people that live there and the businesses that need to thrive and focus on the community. That's all.
Thank you, Natalie. Tracy, go ahead.
Yes, hi. I know that parking is really hard in San Francisco, but I think that in our neighborhood, it's going to be a hardship for a lot of the more like Latino immigrant families who don't know how to access getting a permit or having to take the day off to go down to Van Ness and get it. There's no parking at Van Ness to go get it. Most people work during the time that office is open. And then if you put more meters, you're actually taking parking from people who have to come into the community to work or people that live here. And so I just think that I don't have the answer or the solution of what it is going to be, but I just think that meters and residential parking just don't really work for low-income communities and Latino communities and people that live here. And parking is already hard enough, but it's not as big of an issue right now as it may be moving forward. But I kind of feel like it hasn't been an issue, and we should leave it alone. Some people come into work, some people are going out to work. They trade parkings. It does take up to 30 minutes and sometimes longer. It is part of living in San Francisco. We all know how horrible parking is, but there is no plans to build parking structures or parking places for all the new housing that's going up. And while we love housing and we want housing for, moderate, low income people, we do need to think about why is it that the city is no longer like mandating parking. And so that spills into communities and the Latino Task Force is on 19th in Alabama. There's people that come pick up food. They have kids. It's raining. They're in a car. They need to just park for like 10 minutes. They're in and out. With all this is just like more tickets that would be given out, not having a permit to park there. It just gets scary about how much that might impact people. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Ryan, go ahead.
Hi there. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for running the session. Yeah, I got to be honest, when I saw the draft proposals come through the mail, I was relieved at first. I was like, oh, finally they're sorting the situation out. And then to learn more about it, that it's actually going to make things more complicated it's really disappointing. Just to echo a lot of what the other have been talking about. I mean, I commute by ferry to Alameda, so I'm leaving the car for a few days, at a time, and have to do the sort of work out the algorithm for the parking. So I'm having to move it late at night, and then that's really parking's 3-4 blocks away from my house. I live on Florida Street, and it's not safe to be walking around sometimes at night at that time. And like a lot of the other residents have said, it takes 30 to 45 minutes. And remembering where I've parked is already challenging enough. I feel like it's completely unworkable as it is. So to try and make this situation even more confusing is, I just don't see how this permit is the resolution to that, when it's already bad enough. But yeah, I could go on all night about how unworkable and how unmanageable it is. But yeah, I know I've got other people to speak. But yeah, thank you for taking the time. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Andy, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Andrew. I'm in the mission on 20th and Folsom. Thanks for taking our comments. I wanted to share my opposition to the idea that is being proposed. I understand that it can be challenging to find parking spots on the street, especially during peak times, but as someone who already shares a car with my housemate and bikes to work every day, this proposal feels a little bit targeted. There's a clear advantage for wealthier people who live in single family homes with private driveways or garages, but it exacerbates the financial inequalities that already exist in our community. This policy would discriminate against those who are economically disadvantaged, including renters and people in shared living arrangements who need more than 2 apartments. I live in a group setting with several housemates already, and we definitely have more than 2 cars. I know there's not a right answer, but I would like to encourage more exploration of other solutions that promote sustainable transportation options and prioritize equitable access to parking for all residents. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Andy. Okay. I'm going to lower everyone else's hands. We had 2 people with their hands up, but I know that we heard from you earlier. So one bite at the apple, unfortunately. But again, thank you to everyone for participating and for your patience. Okay, let me make sure. I think you are not on our list. Charlie, go ahead. Charlie, remember you need to click on the microphone icon to unmute yourself. There you go. Your microphone's open. Charlie, I'll give you one more chance. Again, your microphone is open. I don't know if it's just your computer's on mute or your headset or device is on mute. Okay, let's move on. Charlie, if you can hear me, try calling in. I mean, we can certainly get your comments later. maybe over the phone would be better. I'll keep this slide up for now. If you wanted to call in and see if we can get you that, get your comments that way. Okay. All right. So, Mari, we had a lot of questions. And so I don't know how, if you wanted to just go right into it. You
Yeah.
wanted me to, if you wanted me to display a slide maybe, or the map or something, let me know. I could certainly do that if you wanted while you address the questions.
I will just advance. I think the next slide is, if I can. Oh, do you have control?
I'm sharing, yeah.
Oh, okay, then if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, thanks.
Okay.
Great. It sounded like there were a few more hands coming back. If you have any additional feedback, if you go to the project webpage, you can just submit comments. There's an online form there. So please feel free. Some people had said, just a general comment overall was on my specific block, and some people offered where they live and a block face, others did not. If you have a specific block that you'd like us to review, by all means, you can just click on that comment form and put in your block face that you, if you have an alternative recommendation for a regulation, please let me know. And so maybe I'll start there. Had heard comments about this needs to be a block by block, and that was actually what we are trying to do. And I'll start with 10 years ago, there wasn't an effort. It ended. It did not materialize in anything. It ended. And so when we came back and restarted this, we came back with a blank slate. So whatever was proposed 10 years ago that was rejected was nowhere near this restarted effort. We did start from a blank slate. We had in-person workshops. People came with Sharpies and pens and Post-its, and they said, on this block, I would like this, on this block, I would like that. So that is actually what you're seeing, a block by block effort in a comprehensive way, rather than starting with just a couple of streets here. As a woman mentioned, she lives just south of the project area. I think between 21st and 22nd. When you do things block by block, rather than an attempt at something comprehensive like this, you do push the problem to another area. So that's why we are taking a chunk of the Mission neighborhood, just the Northeast Mission, and doing something comprehensive. So you're seeing a big area, but we have actually gone block by block, and that's why you're seeing so many colors on the map. Because we wanted a different regulation to try and match up what those more localized needs are compared to, you know, the Northeast section versus the Northwest versus the middle versus the South. So again, if you have a recommendation for your specific block face, please just put that in the comment form. We will get all those integrated with and review it, just like the comments that we're receiving this evening. So that's just a global response to this needs to be a block by block kind of approach. That is actually how we started. And so again, please feel free to submit comments about that on the form. There was regrettably a lot of confusion around the residential permit parking allowances, and I'll go through what the permit allows you to do versus the permit limits themselves. Several people mentioned the Mission Local article. There was a misprint. We tried to, as soon as it came out and we saw the article for the first time, we messaged the author and said, oh, no. If you have a permit, you are not required to move your vehicle, despite that time limit. So if you can, can you go to the signage again, with the, yes, perfect, thank you. So, oh, nope, you were on the right side there. Yes, this is perfect. So again, if there is signage that says, on the right-hand side there, accept permits, accept area permits, and in this case, it would be the proposed new zone GG instead of on this example sign, it says Q and HV. You do not have to move your vehicle every 2 hours or every 4 hours, whatever the time limit is on that sign. If there is a permit exception, you can leave your car there. So, you know, the comments about who is this supposed to prioritize? These kinds of regulations do prioritize residents and businesses who have permits or teachers that have permits. So I want to make that very clear. The article online has been updated. So if you refresh and go back to that link, you will see that if you are on a street that has this sign, that says exempt area permits, you are not beholden to that time limit. You are exempt from it. So it's just visitors, people without permits, customers, if friends are visiting. And again, this is an example sign that says 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., but these are just daytime hours. So we are recommending 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. So if you have friends coming over for dinner, and they don't have to worry about moving their car at 9 p.m. after 2 hours. So I want to make that, clarify that. Again, unfortunately, there was a misprint in that article. It has been corrected. And then regarding the payer permit, and that's the example on the left-hand side here, it is parking meters, but again, if there is a sign that looks like this, except the permit area, you are exempt from paying that parking meter. Visitors or customers, people without permits would have to pay that meter. So again, a lot of this proposal does prioritize people with permits. So it's working in your favor to have a permit. Akam, if you can go to the map that's about RPP that shows all of the, yeah, perfect. All of the areas that are identified here exempt you from the time limit or exempt you from the meter. Again, that fuchsia or pink color, that's where you're going to see that new tool that we have. It's called payer permit. You'll see a pay station or a parking meter, but if you have a permit, you don't have to pay it. So I hope that clarifies how the residential permit parking works. And there was a question, I think it was John, actually, if memory serves. He asked about the time limits for parking. I think he was asking about the time limits for parking meters. On this map, it's kind of small, but there are 2 little stars, and it's actually around, let's see here, Alabama and 18th. And, oh, yeah, that's fine right there. That's where, oh, you're zooming in, thank you. That's where, while other metered areas would not have time limits, this is where we've been specifically requested to have a 2-hour time limit. So it is just those two locations where, again, there's been a request to have a time limit on the meter. It does not apply, again, on the Alabama block that's fuchsia. If you have a permit, you are not subject to that time limit. You're exempt from payment and exempt from that metered 2-hour time limit. Regarding permit limitations, for all of the new permit holders in this area, there is, when you create a new zone, there is a limit of 2 per household if there are 2 licensed drivers. So for example, if I had 2 vehicles, I myself could not get a permit for those 2 vehicles. But if my roommate also had a vehicle, our household could have 2 permits. I believe one of the speakers mentioned it. You can apply for a 3rd and a 4th permit. They do cost more, but there are allowances to have more than that cap of 2 per household. It's just processed a little bit differently. So, yeah, just to clarify that there are allowances for more than that cap of 2 permits. It's just a slightly different process for that. There were questions about businesses and teachers. Schools apply on behalf of their institution, and it's based on the number of full-time teachers. And so that calculation, there's information again online. And if you're wanting a more specific calculation, again, I'm happy to connect you with a residential permit program manager. This is something that we do for schools across the city that are in areas that have RPP. So it's a process that is a well-oiled machine. So teachers may be eligible. And again, that is done through the school, and it's based on the number of staff. And for businesses, it is one for the business that may be used for a personal vehicle. But then on top of that, if you have vehicles registered to the business, an example from just the other week was a landscaping company or a moving company. And so they had vehicles for their business. And so they may have up to 3. So that's how there's some slight variations depending on your role in the community. If you're a resident, a business, a teacher, again, all this information is available online, and we will be sure in this summary to provide a link right there on this public hearing kind of summary. So I wanted to touch on that as well as the cost and equity. So we have been working actually our first caller, Mission, excuse me, Destina, I believe it was. And my apologies for not connecting. We have been working quite closely with a few other organizations within the area, Calle 24, Meta, Poder, the American Indian Cultural District, and Save the Mission. And there is a much larger effort for a full mission neighborhood kind of comprehensive transportation and planning effort. Of course, this is just part of it. And we have been trying to be very mindful of the equity impacts, which is why we sought to get approval for the monthly payment, still recognizing that you know, with a annual permit of $165 a year, even when you break that up into a monthly payment, it can be burdensome to households. So we are continuing to look into other funding sources to further alleviate some of that burden. And as soon as we get information, we're connecting with the cultural district liaison, their staff at the planning department, staff at the mayor's office. As soon as we get more information, I will be sure to distribute it. But at this time, what we have been successful in doing is getting approval for that monthly payment system. Let's see here. We had several questions about street sweeping. And these proposals don't change currently do not change any of the street sweeping schedules. But I've made a note that we should coordinate better with the street sweeping folks. There was a request to maybe even reduce the amount of street sweeping. We can certainly request it. It's handled by Public Works. And so I will be sure to connect with them and reiterate this request about re-examining street sweeping schedules. And as you might guess, they are coordinated citywide. So we will bring that to their attention, as well as these parking regulations to try and minimize or entirely mitigate some of those impacts that you're experiencing, where there's just a huge shuffle overnight because street cleaning is coming. So have made a note of that. We had a few comments about the conflicts with parklets, and as businesses move into the permanent program, similar to what we're doing here with a public hearing posting, or what we did for a public hearing posting, the same will be true for businesses that want to apply for a permanent parklet. They will have to post signs saying we're applying for the permanent program. If there are objections to that parklet for whatever reason, pardon me, it's too much, they never use it, all of that feedback is received by the Public Works Department, which permits parklets. And so that will be part of the review process. As part of the parklet program, there's an MTA leg of it, which are my colleagues, and I will be sure to flag it for them as well. The specific example was down on Florida. So like I said, I will be sure to relay that feedback. Sorry, I'm just consulting my notes to make sure that I get some of these global comments. There was an inquiry about enforcement and can enforcement take this on? Is it too much for enforcement? And we have been in contact with enforcement, which is what we do for any new regulations that we are wanting to propose. And with 9 to 12 months at least lead time, they are staffing up. There are new technologies in place to make enforcement more efficient. I can only share that enforcement is part of this process, and so it will be enforced to ensure that people are abiding by any regulations that are implemented. It was also asked about extended meter operations. As many of you may know, it's been in the news and discussed at various board meetings. Plans for extended meter operations are in discussion. Nothing has been finalized. In discussions with folks at the MTA, if it does advance, it would not be advanced immediately within the mission. That would be several phases away, which would be years from now, if that advances. So that's all I can say, because that's all the information that we have right now about extended meter operations. Again, the proposal is 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. So it would not extend into the evenings, and it would not operate on Sundays. Sorry, if you'll just grant me a moment while I check to see.
Mari, there was one question about the RPP zone. I think there was one speaker who said, I think she lived in the W zone, and that this the map was included, I guess, going to change.
Great, thank you. Yes, that's right. She was in the southwest corner. And apologies for not explaining this better before, but anything with a solid green line is already permit parking. And we are not changing those regulations. If it is regulated Monday through Saturday, some of them are. Some of them have a 1 hour time limit as opposed to a 2 hour time limit. Those operations will stay the same, as well as the fact that if you have a permit, you are exempt from those time limits. So effectively, if you are on a block that already has residential permit parking, nothing changes for you, except instead of seeing the letter I or W, you'll see the letter GG. So hopefully that clears things up and alleviates some amount of stress. If you have a permit, this is true for anyone that is going to get a permit, if you park on a block that has signage that says except area GG, you are exempt from whatever that regulation is, whether it's a time limit or a parking meter. So, let's see here. While I'm looking at this, could you also look through your notes and make sure that I'm catching most of these questions?
No, I mean, you've done a great job. I think I was looking at, you addressed the parklets, you addressed enforcement. Well, I think one question about the enforcement was not just enforcement of the changes, the proposed changes, but there were a couple comments about would it be
Yes.
a plausible alternative to just keep the parking as it is, but enforce the rules that are out there now?
Right. Great minds. I was literally just looking at 72 hours. So a couple of things. One, there are a few blocks that already have, for example, the residential permit parking, and a couple blocks already in the area that have meters. Whether or not a plan goes forward, those will continue to be enforced, but it's limited. Obviously, it's anything that's unregulated will continue to be a free-for-all. Anyone, even if they're in a camper van or a resident on the street, anyone can park on these streets and move on street cleaning day. The 72-hour rule is something that enforcement typically uses, and it's not just our enforcement, but also the police department when we get feedback of an abandoned vehicle, for example. As you might have, I mean, people have said this themselves, they use their vehicle maybe not every week. They move it for street cleaning, and then they might use it the next week to go to work or to go out of town or something. If we required every single person to move their vehicle every 3 days, that would be a bit of a headache for everyone because people may not use their vehicle every 3 days. So the 72-hour rule is, and I'll provide more information about that in the kind of meeting summary, but it's typically used in the event of an abandoned vehicle. So I want to clarify that we don't go out right now actively and flag every vehicle that has not moved every 3 days. And that's, I'm sure many people that are part of this meeting or in the neighborhood don't move their vehicle every 3 days. And we don't want to introduce that and force people to do that. So I just wanted to flag that. A woman mentioned the Potrero Yard development, and a gentleman, Al, brought up new development, which is a great question and something that I touched on a little bit at the beginning, that while we are not creating more parking, on-street parking, a lot more development is coming in, and a lot of that development does not have off-street parking. There was measures passed some time ago that removed parking minimums. And in some situations, developments are only approved if they have 0 parking. Part of that is to frankly limit vehicles coming in. It's also really expensive. So for particularly 100% affordable housing units, or any that include affordable housing units, it's really expensive to finance off-street parking. And so instead of putting in parking, they put in more housing units. It just creates more housing for people. So because of that, that is why we are stressing the importance to kind of get ahead of more developments coming in, whether they have parking or not. We already have stress on the existing on-street parking supply. And so we want to try and we want to, get a system in place where people are sharing that parking and try to encourage people who are moving into the neighborhood maybe to not bring a car or minimize the number of vehicles that they're bringing in. So it's true. The Potrero yard is looking to include up to 500 units. It is a ways away. The group is meeting. I believe I am going to speak to that group in early to mid-April. About this plan and what adjustments might be needed. And that could be converting some of the 4-hour time limits into RPP, converting some of the paid parking into overlay. When that development and residents come into the area, we can make those adjustments. We don't have to do that today. But when this development, whether it's Potrero Yard or any new development comes in, if we need to make adjustments to better meet the parking demands, we can absolutely do that. Oh, and actually on the same thread there, it sounded like one or two folks were mentioning creating off-street parking, and we are not building any new parking garages. So this proposal is exclusively focused on how we might regulate on-street parking.
One question, Mari, we had was about, I think it was, where is it here? Why certain blocks are 2-hour as opposed to 4-hour, or vice versa, 4-hour as opposed to 2-hour?
Great, thank you. So that was just feedback from the community. If we, factoring in adjacent land uses. So in the instances where it's 2-hour time limits, it tends to be more residential, exclusively residential, whereas the 4-hour time limits might be closer to areas that have some commercial or PDR, institutional, where a little bit more time is needed. So if you're on a block where we currently have 2-hour and you're thinking, you know what, we need 4-hour time limits instead because of the nature of the work that's happening in the area. Again, I encourage you just to submit a comment in the comment form, just so we know specifically what you're looking at. Or vice versa, if you're concerned that 4-hour time limits is too much and you prefer the 2-hour time limits, just please make note of that.
Okay. And then even along those lines, another question was about the map and the boundary, I guess, for the Northeast Mission. Why is it 21st, for example? So I think one person was asking about why not, 22nd, include 22nd or even
right
further down.
Right. So this was a boundary that we had discussed with staff and had teased a little bit with some stakeholders. If you are, and at some point you have to have a boundary, otherwise we'd be talking about regulation citywide. So this is just the scope of this project does end at 21st. If you are south of 21st, for example, the woman who, I think she was on Alabama or Florida, it was concerned that things would be pushing down. That is the area that's on the kind of eastern edge is area W, on the western side is area I, in which case those would be locations where those specific residential permit areas could be extended. And so let me just make a note of that. I'll include that information because you can request to then add your block into that existing residential permit area. So it wouldn't be area GG. If you're south of the project area, it would be area W or I.
Okay. Andy, did you want to come in and did you have any other questions? I know you've also been monitoring the Q&A. Andy, are you there? Maybe, I know you were monitoring the Spanish room as well. I'm not sure if you need to leave that room in order for us to hear you.
Yeah, that's likely. Why don't I probably end interpretation at this period if this is the last double check?
Are we, am I on the air? Let's see.
You
Yes,
are
go
on
ahead.
the air, Andy.
I'm on
Thank you
the
very
air.
much.
All right, thank you. Yeah. Very challenging technical tonight. I appreciate everybody shepherding us through it. Andy Thornley, SFMTA Parking and Curb Management. I have been taking notes both from the spoken, the verbal comment, and also the Q&A. And we will gather all of this up and come back in one document, one place where everyone can come and see. I think Mari has hit most of the big questions, but we want to make sure we get back to folks. One that I heard come up quite a bit, and I see in the Q&A quite a bit, is enforcement on forth. And it's definitely a challenge in this neighborhood as it is across the city. And I'm the guy at the MTA who gets phone calls and emails about that. The short answer is that we have had to be a bit hands-off in enforcement, both for humanitarian reasons. There are human lives involved here, and there are people who have taken shelter in vehicles who have no choice. That's not everybody, but we know that there are folks who frankly have been pushed out of conventional housing. But also there are lawsuits settled and underway that are keeping us from being more aggressive in enforcement where there's a vehicle that may be used as shelter. So for various reasons, the MTA has not been as diligent as some folks might prefer. On the other hand, I think folks have also said, please don't be cruel, don't be punitive to folks who are living in vehicles. I'm giving you a lot of mumbles about this, but the short answer is it's something that we realize that it isn't just the interests of folks living in vehicles. We have to balance that with other folks' interests. And we are working to find better, more equitable and more even-handed ways of doing enforcement where there are vehicles involved that may be used as shelter. But right now, for legal reasons and just for the reasons of humanitarian, frankly, compassion, we are not enforcing as fiercely as some folks would like. But we realize that we need to find a way to balance that better. So I'll just leave it at that. But I do want to recognize that it's a big issue and a big question for a lot of people, and we are not ignoring it. We're just trying to find a way to do it in a way that's manageable. I'll leave it at that and hit the mute button once again.
Thanks,
All right.
Andy.
Thank you, Andy.
Before we close out, and at that point, before we leave, I'll give it back to Hakam. I really appreciate everyone sharing their evening with
I'm
us.
sorry, Mari.
Oh, yes.
Maybe we can go back into interpretation since Andy is no longer speaking, and then we can get the Spanish channel back set up. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Oh, great. Thanks for keeping us on track. Before we adjourn, I wanted to thank everyone for sharing their evening. This is a lot of information. We've had a lot of great feedback up until this evening and even more so tonight. Again, I encourage you, if you have more feedback or questions, if you go to the project page and it's up on the computer right now, there's a comment form. So again, if you have specific locations or global comments, please be sure to submit that. It's tough. It's a tough puzzle. And we are definitely wanting to have a community-based, informed, and integrate all your comments. So again, appreciate all the feedback that we received before and this evening and to come. And we will be putting all this information together. There will be a video. This has been recorded, so we will put that in a project up page, a project update on the web page, including an update to the questions that have been asked and other feedback, as well as links just to make sure that it's readily available about residential permit parking, eligibility, residents versus teachers versus all the different folks. And I just can't thank you enough. So I'll leave it there. So thank you.
Mari, the folks can also on the project website, they can sign up for updates.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And yeah, as Mari mentioned, I don't think we have it here, but the next steps, obviously this still needs to be approved by the board, and so that will also, give you another opportunity to provide public comments. So by all means, if you go to the project website, in addition to sending comments, you can sign up for updates. So that way you're always on top of any future meetings or the final proposal that will go before the board for the proposed changes in the Northeast Mission. Okay, I don't have anything else. I also want to thank everyone for joining us. I know it's we've been going for almost 3 hours now, 2 hours and 40 minutes. So thank you to everyone for taking their time. Thank you to the project team, to David for his support with tonight's hearing, our translators, David and Carlos, the project team individuals, Pamela and Andy, and of course, Mari, an excellent job. To echo C's comments, you're not just a good lady, but today proved that you were a great lady. So a great job, and just the knowledge of all the changes that are being proposed here, very impressive. So I appreciate all your efforts on this project. Like you said, it's quite a puzzle, and definitely don't envy you for taking it on. I'll leave that to you. I'll stick to facilitation. So anyway, okay. Again, thank you to everyone for joining us. The time is now 8:41 and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Right.